Every time I move, the camera might also move around a little bit because I'm actually standing on a bed. It's pretty unbelievable, but this is going to be the last event recap of the year. I have been to the Schmidt Puzzle Masters in Berlin, and it was definitely worth the travel, and I'm going to tell you about it now. So first of all, let's just have a brief overview of what the general vibe of the competition was. And of that, what I can say is that the atmosphere was great. Now, the organizers were Schmidt Puzzles themselves, so the brand, and also an association called ABC Zentrum Berlin. And for them, this was probably their first encounter with speed puzzling. As far as I have seen, they have been doing quite a lot of things. There were some posters on at the venue that actually showed, I think, running or something like that, which is completely unrelated to puzzling. But they have also organized some board game competitions before, which I think led them to organizing the speed puzzle event itself. We definitely could see that they were learning about speed puzzling and how speed puzzling competitions are done kind of on the fly, which created some really funny moments, but it also took the pressure off of participants because somehow the funny situations that were coming up out of the lack of experience were also very well handled, mostly because the organizers really were keen to learn and they were just interested in what is going on and how they can make the competitors more comfortable, which I think is already a good start. Now, the location itself was super comfortable. I think the idea of having a competition in a hotel actually works very well. Most of the participants who were traveling from further away were staying at the hotel, and it was actually also very nice that they had some special offers for those arriving to the competition. You actually could get a pretty good package deal for the entire time that you were there at the competition, which I think is a very nice added comfort. So everyone that came from further away, we just had a hotel room upstairs and you could go and relax between competitions even, and that was very, very easy and yeah, actually a super addition. The first thing that I actually noticed was that once we arrived to the competition and the registration started, that was a little bit of a hiccup. I'm not sure if it was a hiccup, but it definitely could have worked better because the way that it was done is that we all got badges that we could use the whole competition. And then those were filled out by hand. And for each category, you got a separate badge. So you had 3 pieces of the same card on your neck. And so those were filled out by hand. And that resulted in a huge line because obviously everyone turned up almost at the same time before the event would be starting, but people had to stand in line for quite a long time before they could get their registration badges. So those for the next time, those could be either filled out beforehand or they could be printed a little bit differently, or even, yeah, not filled out by hand, but have them printed, or anything like that to like make that process a little bit easier, because if you just rock up and you get handed your badge once you say your name is much easier than actually having to look through all the registration codes. And yes, so that could definitely be streamlined a little bit to make it more comfortable for everyone rocking up at the competition. But regardless of the long waiting time for registration, it was actually pretty comfortable and we were done on time. So it was not bad at all. It's just maybe a little bit of streamlining that could go into it. And that's in general something that I can say about the competition, that everything was on time. So we didn't really have to wait around on anything. The helpers were very prompt. It was a very well-oiled machine, how the helpers worked. I assume that they knew each other already pretty well before. Everyone knew their tasks and everyone was on their place just in time for everyone to start. So there was no real waiting around and the timing of the event went really well. This edition of the Schmidt Puzzle Masters was operating with 3 categories that you could sign up for. Now, the first one of those was obviously the individual category. The individual competition was really the standard speed puzzling competition that is already pretty well known, which is you get a 500-piece puzzle and you're just going to have to solve it as fast as you can, and you have a 75-minute time limit for this one. Now, in this case, I do think that the 75-minute was a little bit ambitious. I know that they had to fit the schedule so that there's like a reasonable finishing time of the competition, but other than that, I still think that 90 minutes would have maybe made a little bit more sense, but we're going to talk more about that later. For each round, you would obviously get a different puzzle, But in this case, there was actually a little bit of a hiccup, which was very surprising to everyone. And I'm not sure if it was actually announced during the competition. And I did find out that the organizers actually had a kind of a shipping problem at one point, and not all puzzles arrived in the amount that they actually wanted them. So the competition ended up using the same puzzle for the first and the third preliminary round. So for the 3 preliminary rounds, there was actually only 2 puzzles used, simply because the orders somehow went south a little. It can happen with anyone. As a result, I can show you both puzzles which were used at the competition. And this was actually the round A and C that were happening, and this was round B. And these puzzles are actually one of the reasons that I think the 75 minutes were a little bit ambitious. Not so much the cats, but with this puzzle, the safari one, it was actually very, very difficult. And the reason that I think that the 75 minutes was maybe a little bit too ambitious is that in the first preliminary round, there were only 6 people that finished. And then in the third preliminary round, there were actually only 2, and everybody else didn't finish on time. So it was actually way more difficult than what it looks like. The other reason that I think the 75 minutes was a little bit too ambitious is that the competition actually had a lot of new faces turning up. So as far as I know, there has not been that many puzzle competitions or events on the eastern or northern side of Germany so far. So there were a lot of unknown people, and it was most likely the first puzzle event for the most participants. And for that reason, the 75 minutes is just very, very ambitious, and 90 minutes would have maybe given a little bit more feeling of success to everybody that was participating. Now, this is something that we're going to be returning to a little bit later with a different category, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. But that's one takeaway, that maybe to rethink the schedule a little bit could actually be very helpful for the new participants, because the 90-minute time limit could result in some people finishing on time, because it can be very disappointing when you don't manage your puzzle when the time runs out. The second category that you could sign up for was actually a puzzle duel, and this is basically just a regular puzzle chess competition under a different name. So the way puzzle chess works is that you have 2 people, opponents, sitting across from each other, and 1 puzzle in the middle. Usually the edge is either made by the competitors, or in this case it was actually brought for you, so you didn't have to worry about the frame at all. And then basically you have a chess timer for each participant, exactly as it is in speed chess or anything else. So basically when you're making your move, which means you are placing a puzzle piece, you set your timer, and then the timer starts running on the other side of the table for the other competitor. And when they made their move and when they have pieced their puzzle piece, they switch over to you, and so on and so on. And basically once the puzzle is completed in the set amount of time, then whoever has more time left on their clock wins the duel and advances to the second round. So it starts out with a big number of tables, competitors competing against each other, and then whoever wins can advance, everyone else falls out. The one thing that was here a little bit of a hiccup, and mostly because of the inexperience of the organizers in this case, is that they pre-completed the frames for each puzzle, which is actually a very nice touch, because they could deliver the puzzle to your table and you didn't have to finish the edge, and you could just start working on the competition puzzle once the timer was started, which is quite nice. But the problem in that case was that even though they have completed the frames for each and every puzzle, but they didn't keep the puzzle together with the frame and didn't consider that there's going to be different piece cuts. So it was a complete mix-up. There were tables that couldn't fill in the frame at all because the inside pieces of the puzzle didn't match the frame that they got, and so there had to be corrections with that, and yeah, that just caused a little bit of uncertainty, and it mixed up some of the rounds. This is again something that comes from inexperience. the organizers have learned it, and most likely they're never going to do this again, because it was also uncomfortable for them. They had to keep running to each table to figure out what was the problem. There were some tables where people figured it out and they just removed the frame and started working on the image anyway. So yes, there was this little mix-up, but other than that, this is something that the organizers have most likely learned from, and they're going to remember to keep the puzzle together with its box and not just start mixing puzzles, because there's different piece cuts. The third category of the Schmidt Puzzle Masters was the team competition, and this is where it got really unconventional. Now, in a regular speed puzzle competition in the team category, you have 3 or 4 participants, and you have a set number of usually 1,000 pieces, maybe 500, but you have a set number of puzzles that you have to complete in a given amount of time, and you have to work on just one puzzle and you have to put that away completely before you can start the next one. Now, what was unconventional about this competition is that you could participate with 2 or 3 people, and you had to complete 3 puzzles. Now, these 3 puzzles were a 200-piece puzzle, a 500-piece puzzle, and a 1,000-piece puzzle that you had to do in 3 hours. Again, it was a pretty ambitious time limit because most of the participants were not experienced speed puzzlers, but it was actually a very, very interesting format. I personally found it really exciting, and I actually wouldn't mind experimenting a little bit more with it, because it actually brings in a lot of strategy. And the first thing that I have noticed is that almost every team had somehow a different approach to the 3 puzzles of how they did it, and that made it pretty exciting, and it makes you think about how it's going to be the most efficient and how it's going to work for each individual team. As I was saying, the event was quite casual and the organizers were very, very friendly. And so when we asked to clarify of how the competition is going to run, they basically said that it doesn't matter if we use tools, if we do the puzzles in parallel. For all they care, we could even puzzle on the floor if we didn't have enough space on the table. So basically, it was very relaxed in that sense. And I think that also added to the entire atmosphere of the team competition as well. Now, for me personally, this competition went really well. As I was saying, I had this puzzle as my preliminary round. And the good thing for me was that I actually didn't really get fixated on the chalk drawing kind of illustration type, but I was actually just happy about the animals and the Africa theme and just the busyness of the image, which helped out a lot. And then pretty much the only place where I really struggled with the image was just this green thing in the middle. And there's also like some very tricky parts of the giraffes being all over the place, because there's an extra giraffe on the right side of the picture compared to the left where there's more of them. So there was always a giraffe head that I couldn't really find where it goes. But other than that, it went really well and I felt super good with this puzzle. Now, with the second place, obviously, it meant that I have qualified into the final, and I was super happy about that as well. Now, with the final, the interesting thing was that it was this image. And if you have watched my videos before, you might have noticed that this puzzle has already turned up in one of my videos, mostly because this puzzle was used at the competition in Cologne about a month earlier. So this was already a known image for, I would say, about 50% of the finalists. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that Schmidt didn't really realize that that competition is going to have a lot of the same competitors from this one, and that it's already going to be an image that was used before. But still, it's actually a very nice image, and I think it's suitable for a final as well. Yes, they have learned from it. I will talk about it later. Now, the final results were pretty exciting. I did manage to get into the top 10, which I'm very happy about again. And first place went to Kati Raina. As far as I know, she has received, apart from the ginormous prize, she has also received a Schmidt coupon and I think a travel voucher, which is a pretty cool prize. And yes, that was very exciting to see. As for the puzzle chess, for me, as I was saying before, the puzzle chess is not really my thing, mostly because it's not the way I really puzzle, but also it's just I'm not good with opponents, which also resulted in me already being eliminated in the first round of the puzzle chess. But it was super exciting to watch again. It's always very, very cool to see everyone puzzling. I do think that puzzle chess is the most spectator sport part of the entire speed puzzling thing. It is entertaining for the audience to watch as well, because it's very exciting. It's super tense, especially once it's getting to the finals. And it's just a really good experience, also as an onlooker, but also as a participant. It's pretty exciting to be involved in that. Now, for the team competition, I teamed up with Anna Menges and Mara Holla from Germany. And for us, the strategy was basically that I would be working on the 200-piece puzzle individually, and they, as a pair, would be working on the 500-piece puzzle. The reasoning behind that is that they are a pretty well-oiled pair. They have puzzled together way more before than with me. So it made sense that they would work on the 500-piece puzzle. And once I'm done with the 200, I would start sorting already for the 1,000-piece one. And that's exactly what we did. Now, the 200-piece puzzle was a Thomas Kinkade Disney set. We were very sure that there would be at least one Thomas Kinkade. And yeah, it was correct. It was a good prediction. The 500-piece puzzle was one with pandas, and it's actually a pretty funny image because there's pandas hidden all around in the puzzle, which is, yeah, always a fun thing to like look at it and to see all the different pandas hidden in very, very random places. And then the 1,000-piece puzzle was actually this one here. And it's a Christmas puzzle. I was super happy with this one. This was quite challenging. Once we were finished with the competition, the organizers actually came up to us just to ask about the puzzle choices and what we thought of them. And I think that for us as like practiced speed puzzlers, it was quite a good choice. It's not easy, but it's also doable. However, for most of the teams, it was just too difficult, unfortunately. Again, we had, I think, 30 participating team, or maybe even 40, and only 6 finished, which is obviously not very many teams. So it might have been good to choose something easier to help most of the newcomers to also feel good and to have some more feeling of success in the puzzling competition. I have actually completed the 1,000-piece puzzle a second time, and I did realize that some of the sorting choices that I made were not exactly the best one, and I could have done it a little bit differently. And yeah, that was a pretty good learning curve that I'm going to take with me to the next competition. All in all, I can definitely say that the competition had a super atmosphere. I think I already elaborated on that multiple times, and I can only repeat it. It was very easygoing. The organizers were super friendly. They were very chatty as well. And we could also have a really good time during the entire event. There were puzzles out of the competition area in like the dining part of the hotel. And people were just hanging out, were doing puzzles left, right, and center. There were obviously some Schmidt puzzles that were provided for us, which I think was also quite nice. There was also a wooden Schmidt puzzle that we did, which was extremely difficult. It was a very, very nice experience. We could get together again. It's again, the puzzle community being itself. Everyone is super friendly. Anyone can sit down to a puzzle that others are working on, and they are more than welcome to join. And that was a very nice experience. It was also quite a diverse crowd in the sense that there were a number of speed puzzlers, obviously, but I would say maybe about 20 or 30 of us, and everybody else that were participating were actually casual puzzlers who I don't exactly know how they found out about the competition, to be honest. Because as I was saying, it was not advertised super heavily. So apart from it being on the German Association's website and being shown on the Schmidt website, there was not much push coming for this competition. So I think way more people could have found it if it was advertised a little bit better. But probably now the word of mouth is going to be carrying it for the next year. Now, the good news is that they are definitely planning to do this next year. And what I was very, very happy to see is that, as I was saying, there were representatives of Schmidt Puzzles as the brand there as well, which is always nice to see the brands being interested in this new sport. And they were so very interested and they were super eager to learn. And there was also a brand presentation when they were open for questions and everything. And there they were actually saying that they're definitely going to use unpublished puzzles for the next Schmidt Puzzle Masters, which is most likely going to be 2026, which is amazing. Like, they have immediately recognized that there is a need for unpublished puzzles for a competition and that it's not impossible to do. So they have kind of made a promise already that there would be unpublished puzzles, which everyone was very happy about, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's also very nice to see that there's an increasing number of brands that are interested in getting more and more involved in speed puzzling, because there's a gap in the market here, and whoever jumps in first is going to be, yeah, settling in as a speed puzzling brand, which I think is going to be more important in the future. And yeah, this might be a good move for Schmidt for the future. And if they really keep their promise with the unpublished puzzles, that's going to be a big step. And I can only welcome that. Overall, I'm really happy that I took part in this competition. It was, for me, a 6-hour drive, so it was definitely something to plan for, and I would happily do it again. Even with the little organizational hiccups and the inexperience, it balanced itself out with the enthusiasm and the happiness and the general atmosphere. The one thing that even the organizers pointed out was that puzzle people are just super relaxed and just so happy to puzzle that the whole competition is not as serious as what they have seen before. And like I was saying, they were organizing board game competitions before, and I have absolutely no idea what it's called in English. But this, and they were saying that their people are super stressed about doing well and about, yeah, everything running smoothly. So I'm happy that it was a good experience for the organizers as well, and not just the competitors, because that means that they're going to be eager to organize more, and hopefully that is going to happen. I'm also going to be very interested to see how much they took away of the experience and how the competition is going to develop next year, if it really does happen. And yes, it's just overall where it's going to grow. Thank you so much for watching this event recap. Now, as you might have noticed, I have a different background, and the reason for that is just the end of the year family season. There's already a lot of things going on for me, so I had to find an alternative of how I'm going to be filming, and that's going to be the same for the next video that is still coming up before the end of the year. And other than that, yes, this was the last event recap. It's pretty crazy because it feels like 2025 really went by just like this. And I'm already making plans for 2026, which is insane. But there's still going to be one last video coming up before the end of the year, probably with this same background, but it might be a different one if the holiday season goes the way that it goes. There's already a lot of family time for me, so there's things changing around, and including my background. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and see you in the next video.